as I just spent the last 4 hours reading a measly 15 pages of the HL7 version 3 chapter of my HL7 fundamentals course, I couldn't help but wonder, why exactly is learning something new so difficult? Hi, my name is Brian, and I'm an informatics pharmacist interested in connecting the world's healthcare data. As I was preparing my transition from a clinical informatics position in the hospital and health system setting into a more technical role in health tech or biotech, never really know how best to categorize this industry, I immersed myself in anything that could provide me a better foundation for this transition. Typically, it'd be pure technical skills like SQL, R, and Python, or more recently, HL7 and cloud skills, specifically Google Cloud. However, what I've come to realize, especially with my enrollment in the formal introductory HL7 fundamentals course, is that it is no walk in the park. As I contemplate whether I'm just not as adept as I used to be in learning new things, or the content is just that complicated, I began to wonder why learning something new was this difficult. The frustration with learning the content in the HL7 fundamentals class, especially the chapter on HL7 version 3, provided the impetus for me to do this video, and I wanted to share some general thoughts in no particular order in the next few things I'm about to say. Firstly, being good at one thing doesn't mean you're good at another. In the book Mindset by Carol Dweck, she described how individuals who are praised for being good at something can easily fall into the trap of giving up on learning new things that don't come as natural. For example, when these individuals face challenges in absorbing the information, they will conclude that they just don't have the talent for that particular subject and just give up and trap themselves. Almost ironically, I'm fairly certain I'm doing this video in part due to falling into that trap myself. I'm also kind of avoiding it. Second, learning anything new is probably U-shaped. Not to be confused with U-shaped development or learning, but rather my own perception that learning anything new usually is difficult initially, gets easier as you become more proficient, but then hard again as you realize how much nuance there is in a particular topic. For example, when I was in pharmacy school, they taught me how chest x-rays was one of the diagnostic tools used for determining whether a patient had pneumonia. Interpretations from the radiologist that included words like patchy infiltrates would be in alignment with patients who had pneumonia. This is important as it'll factor into our decisions as to what medications to use and perhaps how aggressive we may want the antibiotic regimen to be. Now, learning this for the first time was difficult, but gradually becoming easier over time. Then it became hard again as I began to review the Step 1 and 2 exam materials in my last year in pharmacy school because I was interested in pursuing medical school afterwards. Specifically, as a physician, you don't just rely on the interpretation alone, you also have to take into account whether the test was even interpreted correctly in the first place. It's not exactly trivial either, as laterality can be missed or the chest x-ray interpreted incorrectly altogether due to either lack of experience or other technical factors. Thus, as you become more knowledgeable in a given topic, the more you realize the less you know and how much more complex it can get. Next, applicability or pure boredom. Another thought is that technical topics, especially ones that go into painstaking detail about syntax and schemas, can be quite mundane. It makes me think of the multi-state pharmacy jurisprudence examination, or the MPJE, which is the state-specific law exam that we as pharmacists have to take to get licensed in a given state. My time spent dozing off probably well surpassed the time spent actually reading because the content was so dry. Relating this back to the topic at hand, I think learning new things, at least initially, can be difficult for individuals to figure out how it can be applied. Moreover, if the content is exceptionally boring, which I think technical concepts usually are, it just makes it worse. Common complaints that I hear anecdotally from my healthcare colleagues when they embark on learning technical topics like informatics or programming is that it's quite hard to visualize the bigger picture and how it applies to the work, and again, that it's very boring. I think most would agree with me when I say that the typical solution here is to mix education with entertainment, or AKA edutainment. Though harder said than done, and a huge shout out to all the educators out there that do, as most technical content I come across is equivalent to watching paint dry. Last but not least, it's easier said than done. It's cliche to say that learning something new takes time and that proficiency with any given skill will gradually improve as you spend more time with it. However, it still doesn't change the fact that it's easier said than done. Continually reading and rereading the same pages over and over again to internalize a concept can be a bit demoralizing. Conversely, thinking about the long term and the bigger picture can serve as a dose of inspiration to keep chugging along. Although this article is probably more of a rant than anything, hopefully it'll also help others because I'm sharing more of a struggle versus a win. So for those who find themselves in this position, I encourage you to keep chugging along. I know that I will, primarily because my homework and quizzes are due in a few days. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I gotta get back to studying, and I'll see you in the next one.